Autistic intern accidentally barges into the billionaire CEO's office. He sees her and falls in love at first sight. She didn't mean to interrupt a board meeting, but she did. He didn't mean to fall in love with a stranger, but he did. What would you do if one awkward mistake changed your entire life? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you believe love comes when you least expect it. Jordan Hayes, a caramel-skinned intern on the autism spectrum, just wanted to survive her first day. But fate, and a wrongly labeled door, brought her face to face with Blaine Mercer, a billionaire CEO known for being cold, calculated, and completely unavailable. But from the moment their eyes met, everything began to change. Not just for him, but for her too. This isn't your typical love story. It's a story about acceptance, trust, and the magic that happens when two broken people find peace in each other. Welcome back to the channel, my beautiful story family. Before we begin, I would be glad to know that these lessons get to people in different parts of the world, so please let me know where you're watching from. And if you believe in spreading kindness to people around you, hit the subscribe button. But if you believe in cruelty, do not subscribe. Thank you for being part of this growing community. Now, let's get into the story. Jordan Hayes clutched her leather-bound notebook to her chest, the edges worn from countless hours of anxious gripping. The elevator hummed as it climbed to the 47th floor of Mercer Enterprises, the sleek steel walls reflecting slivers of her caramel skin and wide, darting eyes. Her first day as an intern felt like stepping onto a tightrope without a net. Every sound, the ding of the elevator, the muffled voices beyond the doors, hit her senses like a drumbeat. She'd memorized the company handbook, rehearsed her introduction in the mirror, and triple-checked her schedule, but nothing prepared her for the chaos of actually being here. The doors slid open, revealing a polished marble hallway lined with glass offices. Men and women in crisp suits moved with purpose, their voices a low hum of efficiency. Jordan's sneakers squeaked faintly as she stepped out, her heart hammering. She was supposed to deliver a stack of financial reports to the analytics department, but the signs were confusing, the arrows pointing in directions that seemed to contradict each other. Her supervisor, a harried woman named Karen, had thrust the reports into her hands with a curt, "Top floor now," before vanishing into a meeting. Jordan's fingers traced the edge of her notebook, grounding her as she scanned the hallway. She needed to focus. Numbers, patterns, systems, those were her anchors. People, with their unpredictable glances and unspoken rules, were harder. Being on the autism spectrum meant she saw the world through a lens of clarity and chaos, where details stood out like stars, but social cues blurred into static. She muttered a string of quarterly projections under her breath, the numbers soothing her nerves like a lullaby. A door loomed ahead, unmarked except for a small brass plaque she didn't have time to read. It had to be the right one. Karen said top floor, and this was the only door that looked important. She knocked lightly, then pushed it open without waiting for a response, her mind already racing to the next task. The room fell silent. Jordan froze, her sneakers rooted to the carpet. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward her, seated around a massive mahogany table. Charts and graphs glowed on a screen behind them, numbers she recognized instantly. Projections for Q3, slightly off by a decimal point she'd noticed in the reports. At the head of the table sat a man in a tailored navy suit, his sharp jawline and piercing gray eyes commanding the space. Blaine Mercer. She'd seen his face on the company website, but photos didn't capture the weight of his presence. He leaned back in his chair, one hand resting on a phone, the other tapping a pen with deliberate precision. Jordan's voice caught, her throat tight. "I'm sorry, I thought this was analytics." A woman in a red blazer frowned, her lips parting to speak, but Blaine raised a hand, silencing her without breaking eye contact with Jordan. The room seemed to shrink, the air heavy with unspoken questions. Jordan's fingers tightened on her notebook, her mind scrambling for an exit strategy. She should leave. She should apologize again and run. But her mouth, as it often did when she was nervous, betrayed her. "The projections on slide 6 are wrong," she blurted, her voice louder than intended. "The revenue forecast for the European sector is overstated by 1.3% because someone miscalculated the exchange rate fluctuation. I saw it in the reports this morning." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. The woman in the red blazer glanced at the screen, then back at Jordan, her frown deepening. A man with silver hair chuckled, but it wasn't kind. Jordan's cheeks burned. She'd done it again, spoken out of turn, broken some invisible rule she couldn't see. Blaine's pen stopped tapping. He leaned forward, his gaze locking onto hers with an intensity that made her stomach twist. "You saw that in the reports?" His voice was low, smooth, like polished stone. "In what? 5 minutes?" Jordan nodded, unable to look away. 3, actually. I read fast." The silver-haired man snorted. "This is a board meeting, not a math club. Who is this girl?" "Jordan Hayes," she said before anyone else could answer, her voice steadier now. Numbers were safe. Facts were safe. "Intern, first day. I was supposed to deliver these." She held up the stack of reports, her hands trembling slightly. Blaine's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but something close. He stood, crossing the room in a few measured strides, and took the reports from her hands. His fingers brushed hers, brief but electric, sending a jolt through her that she didn't understand. Up close, he smelled faintly of cedar and ink, his presence overwhelming in a way that made her want to step back and lean closer at the same time. "Jordan Hayes," he repeated, as if testing the weight of her name. He glanced at the reports, then back at her, his eyes searching hers for something she couldn't name. "Who are you? And why do I never want you to leave this room?" The words hung in the air, soft but heavy, like a secret spoken too soon. Jordan's breath caught. She didn't know what he meant, didn't know how to respond. The room was silent again, every pair of eyes now on Blaine, waiting for him to laugh it off or dismiss her. But he didn't. He just stood there, inches away, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. "I should go," she mumbled, stepping back toward the door. Her sneakers squeaked again, louder this time, and she winced. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to—" "Stay," Blaine said, the word sharp enough to stop her mid-step. He turned to the board, his tone shifting to something colder, more commanding. "We're done here. Meeting's adjourned." The woman in the red blazer blinked. "Blaine, we haven't finished." "I said we're done." His voice left no room for argument. One by one, the board members gathered their things and filed out, casting curious glances at Jordan as they passed. She stood frozen, her heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. When the door clicked shut, leaving them alone, Blaine set the reports on the table and leaned against it, crossing his arms. "You're not in trouble," he said, his voice softer now, almost gentle. "But you can't just walk into a board meeting and drop a bombshell like that. Not without consequences." Jordan's stomach dropped. "Am I fired?" He laughed, a low, rumbling sound that caught her off guard. "Fired?" I'm intrigued." He tilted his head, studying her. "You saw a mistake no one else did. You walked into a room full of people who'd eat you alive and didn't flinch. That's not nothing." "I flinched," she admitted, her fingers tracing the edge of her notebook again. "I'm still flinching." His smile was small but real, softening the sharp edges of his face. "Fair enough. But you're still here." Jordan didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to this, someone looking at her like she was more than a collection of quirks and numbers. Blaine Mercer was supposed to be untouchable, a name on a letterhead, not a man standing 3 feet away, asking her to stay. She shifted her weight, her sneakers scuffing the carpet. I should get back to work. Karen's probably looking for me. Karen can wait, he said, stepping closer. Not enough to crowd her, but enough to make her hyper-aware of the space between them. Tell me something, Jordan. Why here? Why Mercer Enterprises? The question caught her off guard. She could lie, give him the polished answer she'd rehearsed for interviews, but something about his gaze made her want to tell the truth. Numbers don't lie, she said quietly. People do sometimes, but numbers don't. Your company, it's built on systems, patterns. I'm good at those. He nodded, like he understood more than she'd said. And what happens when the patterns break? When someone, throws them off? Her brow furrowed. I don't know. I'd figure it out. Good, he said, his voice low. Because I have a feeling you're going to need to. The words felt like a warning, but his eyes held something else, something warm, almost curious. Jordan's phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of the moment. She glanced at it. Karen, demanding to know where she was. I really have to go, she said, backing toward the door. Blaine didn't stop her this time, but he watched her every step, his expression unreadable. We'll talk again, Jordan Hayes, he said, as she reached for the handle. Count on it. She slipped out, her heart racing, the door clicking shut behind her. The hallway felt colder now, the marble gleaming under the lights. She leaned against the wall, catching her breath, replaying his words in her mind. Why do I never want you to leave this room? It didn't make sense. None of this did. Downstairs, in the chaos of the analytics department, Jordan tried to focus on her work. Spreadsheets glowed on her monitor, numbers aligning in perfect rows. But her mind kept drifting back to Blaine's eyes, his voice, the way he'd looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. She didn't notice the security camera above her desk, its lens quietly tracking her movements. In his office, Blaine sat behind his desk, the city skyline sprawling beyond the windows. He pulled up the security feed on his laptop, Jordan's face filling the screen. She was sorting files, her movements precise, almost rhythmic. He leaned back, his fingers steepled, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He'd built an empire on control, on knowing every variable. But this was something new, something he couldn't predict. His phone buzzed, an email from HR about the intern who disrupted the board meeting. They recommended a formal warning, maybe termination. Blaine's jaw tightened. He typed a single sentence in reply. No action. She stays. He hit send, then leaned forward, his eyes still on the screen. Who are you, Jordan Hayes? He murmured, his voice barely audible. And what are you doing to me? The question lingered, unanswered, as the city hummed below, oblivious to the collision of two lives that had just begun. Have you ever had a moment that changed your life forever? Jordan's fingers trembled as she shoved her notebook into her bag, the analytics department buzzing around her like a hive. The memory of Blaine's voice, "We'll talk again, Jordan Hayes," clung to her like static, making it hard to focus. She glanced at the clock. 4:57 p.m. 3 minutes until she could escape the fluorescent chaos of her first day. Karen had already scolded her for being missing earlier, her words sharp but vague, as if Jordan was supposed to decode the subtext. She didn't. She never did. The security camera above her desk blinked, a tiny red light she hadn't noticed before. She shook her head, pushing the thought away. Just nerves. Just her mind turning patterns into problems. She grabbed a stack of files to return to the cabinet, determined to end the day without another mistake. But the files slipped. They hit the floor with a thud, paper scattering like leaves across the carpet. Jordan's breath hitched, her chest tightening as she dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather them. The numbers on the pages blurred, Projections, budgets, all out of order now. Her hands moved faster, clumsy, her pulse hammering in her ears. Voices around her faded into a dull roar, the room too loud, too bright. She was messing up again, breaking something, proving she didn't belong here. "Hey," a voice said, low and steady, cutting through the noise like a lifeline. Jordan froze, her fingers clutching a crumpled page. She looked up, and there he was, Blaine Mercer, kneeling beside her, his navy suit jacket brushing the carpet. His gray eyes were softer now, less like steel and more like a quiet storm. He reached for a stray paper, his movements deliberate, as if he knew one wrong move might shatter her. "You don't have to do that," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. "I've got it." "You've got a lot of things," he said, his tone light but not mocking. He picked up another page, smoothing it out before handing it to her. "But I'm here, so let me help." She blinked, unsure why a billionaire CEO was on the floor of the analytics department, gathering her mess. Her co-workers were staring. She could feel their eyes like pinpricks on her skin. She ducked her head, her braids falling forward, shielding her face. "I don't like when people look at me too long," she said, so quietly she wasn't sure he'd hear. "It hurts." Blaine paused, his hand stilling on a file. He tilted his head just enough to catch her gaze without forcing it. "Then I'll look just enough to keep you safe," he said, his voice a promise, soft but unyielding. Jordan's breath caught. Safe. The word felt foreign, like a language she'd never learned. She studied him, searching for the catch, the hidden meaning people always seem to tuck into their words. But his face was open, his eyes steady, and for the first time all day, the chaos in her head quieted. "Why are you here?" she asked, bolder now, her fingers clutching the files a little less tightly. "You don't do this. Help interns." Blaine's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "Maybe I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to." He stood, offering her a hand. She hesitated, then took it, his grip warm and firm as he pulled her to her feet. The files were stacked neatly now, but he didn't let go right away, his thumb brushing her knuckles for a fraction of a second before he stepped back. "Keep those numbers in line, Jordan Hayes," he said, his voice carrying a hint of something she couldn't place. Amusement, curiosity, maybe both. "I'm starting to think you see things the rest of us miss." He walked away, his footsteps silent on the carpet, leaving her standing there with a pile of files and a heart that wouldn't slow down. The camera above her desk blinked again, its lens catching the moment. But Jordan didn't notice. She was too busy replaying his words, his touch, the way he'd looked at her. Not like she was broken, but like she was whole. In his office, Blaine leaned against his desk, the city lights painting shadows across his face. He pulled up the security feed again, Jordan's image flickering on his screen. She was back at her desk now, sorting files with that same rhythmic precision that fascinated him. He shouldn't be doing this. Watching her, letting her slip into his thoughts. He'd built walls around himself for years, kept people at a distance to protect his empire, his secrets. But Jordan was different. She saw through the cracks not because she was trying, but because she couldn't help it. His phone buzzed, a text from his CFO. Boards asking about the intern. Red flags in her file. "Want me to handle it?" Blaine's jaw tightened. He typed back, "No, I'll deal with it." He set the phone down, his eyes drifting back to the screen. "What are you hiding, Jordan?" he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "And why do I want to know so badly?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the night deepened outside, the city humming with secrets of its own. Jordan sat at her desk, the files now neatly stacked, but her mind was anything but orderly. Blaine's words, "I'll look just enough to keep you safe," echoed in her head, a riddle she couldn't solve. His hand on hers, brief but warm, lingered like a ghost. She glanced at the clock. 5:15 p.m. The analytics department was thinning out, her co-workers trickling toward the elevators, but she stayed, double-checking her work. Mistakes weren't an option, not after today. The security camera's red light blinked above her, unnoticed. She rubbed her temples, trying to drown out the memory of Blaine kneeling beside her, his voice cutting through her panic. It didn't make sense. CEOs didn't do that. They didn't notice interns, didn't promise safety. Her fingers traced the edge of her notebook, grounding her in the familiar. Numbers, patterns, those she could trust. A shadow fell over her desk. "Still here, Hayes?" Karen's voice was clipped, her arms crossed. "Don't think one stunt in a board meeting makes you special. Get those reports to me by 8 tomorrow." Jordan nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, ma'am." Karen lingered, her eyes narrowing. "And stay out of places you don't belong." She turned on her heel, leaving Jordan with a knot in her stomach. The warning felt heavier than it should, like it carried a meaning she couldn't grasp. She packed her bag, the weight of the day pressing down on her. As she stepped into the elevator, her phone buzzed, a text from her mom. "Proud of you, baby. First days are tough. You got this." Jordan smiled faintly, but the warmth faded as the doors opened to the lobby, where whispers were already spreading. The next morning, Jordan arrived early, her sneakers silent on the marble floor. The analytics department was quiet, the hum of computers her only company. She liked it this way. No eyes, no voices, just work. But as the clock ticked toward 9, the room filled, and with it came a shift she couldn't ignore. Interns clustered at the coffee machine, their glances darting her way, their laughter sharp and pointed. Trinity, a tall intern with a sleek ponytail and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, leaned against Jordan's desk, flipping through a file without permission. "So, Jordan," she said, her voice syrupy, "heard you got cozy with the big boss yesterday, barging into board meetings, dropping files for him to pick up." Bold move. Jordan's fingers froze on her keyboard. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice low. "I made a mistake." "Sure you did." Trinity's laugh was a blade, slicing through the air. Two other interns, Matt and Lila, hovered nearby, smirking. "Funny how mistakes get you FaceTime with Blaine Mercer. What's your secret? Trip into his office next." The words stung, each one a pinprick Jordan didn't know how to dodge. She focused on her screen, numbers blurring as her pulse quickened. "I'm just here to work," she said, barely above a whisper. Trinity leaned closer, her voice dropping to a mock whisper. "Listen, Jordan, you're sweet, but this place eats sweet for breakfast. Do yourself a favor, quit before you embarrass yourself more. Or worse, before someone makes you." Jordan's hands clenched under the desk, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to shrink, to disappear, but something stubborn sparked inside her. Numbers didn't lie, patterns didn't judge. She'd earned her place here, even if no one else saw it. "I'm not quitting," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Not today." Trinity's smile faltered, but she shrugged, tossing the file onto Jordan's desk. "Suit yourself, just don't cry when it gets rough." She sauntered off, Matt and Lila trailing her, their laughter echoing in Jordan's ears. The morning dragged, each whispered comment and sidelong glance piling onto her shoulders. By noon, she felt like she was carrying a building. She ate lunch alone at her desk, a sandwich from home, ignoring the chatter around her. The rumors were spreading, she could feel them like static in the air. Intern crashes board meeting. Intern gets special treatment. Interns after the CEO. None of it was true, but truth didn't seem to matter. Her phone pinged, an email from an unknown sender. "Jordan Hayes. Meet me at 1 p.m. in the executive lounge." BM. Her breath caught. Blaine. No one else had those initials. The executive lounge was on the top floor, a place interns didn't go unless summoned. She glanced around, half expecting Trinity to be watching, but the room was oblivious, lost in its own rhythm. At 12:55, Jordan stood outside the lounge, her heart pounding. The door was frosted glass, Mercer Enterprises logo etched in silver. She smoothed her blouse, wishing she'd worn something less plain, then pushed the thought away. This wasn't about impressing him. It was... She didn't know what it was. She knocked, then entered. The lounge was sleek, white leather couches, a glass table, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city. Blaine stood by the table, a tray of sandwiches and coffee set out, his suit jacket draped over a chair. He looked up and his face softened, just enough to make her stomach flip. "Jordan," he said, gesturing to a seat. "Thanks for coming." She sat, clutching her notebook like a shield. "Why am I here?" she asked, her bluntness surprising even herself. He didn't flinch, just poured her a coffee, sliding it across the table. "Because I wanted to talk, away from boardrooms and dropped files." He sat opposite her, his eyes searching hers. "How's your second day going?" She hesitated, Trinity's words clawing at her. "It's fine," she lied, then winced. Lies never sat right with her. "People are talking. About me. About yesterday." Blaine's jaw tightened, a flicker of something, anger, crossing his face. "Let them talk. They're wrong about you." "How do you know?" she asked, her voice sharper than intended. "You don't know me." He leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. "I know you saw a mistake in a report no one else caught. I know you stood your ground in a room full of sharks, and I know you're still here, even when it's hard. That's more than most." Jordan's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the warmth in his voice, but doubt gnawed at her. "Why do you care?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "I'm just an intern." He didn't answer right away, his gaze drifting to the window, then back to her. "Because you're not just anything," he said, his voice low, almost raw. "And I'm tired of pretending I don't notice." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning she couldn't unpack. She picked up her coffee, the warmth grounding her, and took a sip to avoid his eyes. They ate in silence for a moment, the city humming beyond the glass, but the quiet wasn't awkward. It was alive, charged with questions neither dared ask. As they finished, Blaine stood, slipping on his jacket. "I'll walk you back," he said, but his phone buzzed before she could respond. He glanced at it, his expression darkening, then pocketed it. "Or, maybe I'll see you tomorrow." She nodded, confused by the shift, and left the lounge alone, her mind spinning. Back at her desk, the whispers were louder now, Trinity's smirk sharper. Jordan tried to focus, but her phone buzzed, an anonymous text with a photo attachment. Her breath stopped. It was her and Blaine in the lounge, their heads bent close over the table, his hand brushing the coffee cup near hers. The angle was intimate, deliberate, like someone wanted it to look like more. Who sent this, she thought, her heart racing, and why did it feel like the walls were closing in? In his office, Blaine stared at the same photo, forwarded from an unknown number. His fingers tightened on his phone, his voice a low growl. "Someone's playing games," he muttered, his eyes narrowing. "But they don't know who they're dealing with." Jordan's fingers hovered over her phone, the photo of her and Blaine in the executive lounge burning into her eyes. The intimacy of the angle, his hand near hers, their heads tilted close, felt like a lie, a moment twisted into something it wasn't. Her desk in the analytics department felt exposed, the hum of keyboards and muffled laughter from her co-workers pressing against her. She deleted the text, but the image lingered in her mind, a question with no answer. Who took it, and why send it to her? Trinity sauntered by, her ponytail swinging, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Everything okay, Jordan? You look tense. The smirk on her face said she knew more than she was letting on, but Jordan didn't take the bait. She shoved her phone into her bag and focused on her spreadsheet, numbers anchoring her against the rising tide of panic. She wouldn't let them see her crack. Not Trinity, not whoever was behind that photo. The clock ticked toward 3 p.m., and her email pinged. A new message from Karen. Report to the executive floor now. No explanation, just the usual sharpness. Jordan's stomach twisted, but she grabbed her notebook and headed for the elevator, her sneakers silent on the marble. The ride up felt endless, each floor a reminder of how out of place she was in Blaine's world. The executive floor was quieter, the air heavy with polish and power. As she stepped out, a woman blocked her path, tall, with sleek blonde hair and eyes like chipped ice. She wore a tailored black dress that screamed wealth, her posture commanding attention. Jordan didn't know her, but the woman's gaze pinned her in place, sharp and knowing. "You're Jordan Hayes," the woman said, her voice smooth but edged, like a blade wrapped in silk. She didn't wait for confirmation, stepping closer, her heels clicking on the floor. "I'm Rhea Caldwell. You've been busy, haven't you?" Jordan's grip tightened on her notebook, her heart stuttering. Rhea's name wasn't unfamiliar. She'd seen it in old company articles, linked to Blaine, his ex-fiancée, the one who'd left years ago after a public fallout. The whispers called it messy, but Jordan hadn't cared enough to dig. Now, facing her, she wished she had. "I'm just here to work," Jordan said, her voice quieter than she wanted. She tried to step around Rhea, but the woman moved with her, blocking the way. "Work," Rhea repeated, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Is that what you call it? Lunch with Blaine? Cozy little moments caught on camera?" She pulled out her phone, the photo of Jordan and Blaine glowing on the screen. "This doesn't look like work to me." Jordan's breath caught, her mind racing. That's not what it was. Someone took that to what? Show the truth? Rhea's voice dropped, low and venomous. "You're a distraction, Jordan, a glitch in his system. But I know things about you. Things you wouldn't want the whole company reading in tomorrow's headlines." She tilted her head, studying Jordan like prey. "Medical records are private, until they're not." The words hit like a punch, stealing Jordan's air. Her autism diagnosis, buried in HR's confidential files, wasn't a secret she hid, but it was hers to share. Or not. The idea of it splashed across news feeds, twisted to make her look broken, made her chest ache. "You can't do that," she said, but her voice shook, betraying her. Rhea laughed, soft and cruel. "Oh, sweetheart, I can do anything, and I will unless you back off. Blaine's not yours. He'll leave you the moment you become inconvenient. Trust me, I know." Jordan's hands trembled, her notebook slipping slightly. She wanted to run, to hide, but her feet stayed rooted, defiance flickering through her fear. "I'm not trying to take him," she said, steadier now. "I don't even know what he wants from me." Rhea's eyes narrowed, like she hadn't expected resistance. Before she could respond, a door opened down the hall, and Blaine stepped out, his expression shifting from neutral to stone-cold the moment he saw Rhea. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice low, dangerous. Rhea turned, her smile sliding back into place, effortless and polished. "Just catching up with your new favorite intern, Blaine. She's interesting." Blaine's gaze flicked to Jordan, softening for a fraction of a second, before hardening again as he faced Rhea. "Leave her alone, Rhea. Whatever game you're playing, it ends now." "Game?" Rhea's laugh was light, but her eyes glinted. "I'm just looking out for you. Old habits, I guess." She brushed past him, her shoulder grazing his, and tossed a final glance at Jordan. "Think about what I said, Jordan. Time's running out." She disappeared into the elevator, leaving silence in her wake. Jordan's knees felt weak, but she stood taller, refusing to crumble. Blaine stepped closer, his hand hovering near her arm, not touching but close enough to feel his warmth. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice softer now, laced with something raw. "She knows," Jordan whispered, her eyes on the floor. "About my history. She said she'd tell everyone." Blaine's jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "She won't. I won't let her." He reached for her notebook, gently taking it from her shaking hands and setting it on a nearby table. "Jordan, look at me." She did, reluctantly, his gray eyes anchoring her. "Why is this happening?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," he said, his tone heavy with guilt. "And I'm sorry. She's part of a past I thought I'd buried, but I'll handle it. You don't have to be scared." But she was. The photo, Ria's threat, the whispers circling her like vultures. It was too much. She stepped back, needing space, needing clarity. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "Not if it means this." Blaine's face tightened, like her words cut deeper than he'd expected. "You don't have to decide anything now," he said. "Just don't run. Not yet." She nodded, unsure if it was a promise or a reflex, and grabbed her notebook, heading for the elevator. His eyes followed her, heavy with something unspoken, but he didn't stop her. As the doors closed, her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text, this time just words. "You were warned." In his office, Blaine slammed his fist on the desk, the photo of him and Jordan still open on his laptop. He dialed his head of security, his voice ice. "Find out who's leaking these photos, and dig into Ria's accounts, everything. She's not touching Jordan. Not now, not ever." He hung up, his eyes on the city skyline, a storm brewing in his chest. Someone was pulling strings, and he'd tear them apart to keep her safe. But deep down, a question gnawed at him. Was he protecting her from Ria, or from himself? Jordan's hands shook as she stared at the anonymous text. "You were warned," the words searing into her like a brand. The elevator ride down from the executive floor felt suffocating, Ria's threat echoing in her mind. "He'll leave you the moment you become inconvenient." Her notebook, clutched tight against her chest, was no longer enough to ground her. The whispers, the photo, the weight of eyes she couldn't escape. It was all too much. She'd come to Mercer Enterprises to prove herself, to find a place where her patterns and numbers mattered. Instead, she'd stumbled into a world that felt like quicksand. Back at her desk, she ignored Trinity's smirking glance and opened her laptop, typing a resignation email to Karen. Her fingers hesitated over the keys, each word a surrender she hated. Effective immediately. "Thank you for the opportunity." She hit send before she could second-guess it, her heart sinking as the screen confirmed delivery. It was done. She grabbed her bag and left, the security camera's red light blinking as she passed, unnoticed. The city outside was gray, a drizzle starting as she walked to the subway. Her phone stayed silent, no new threats, no messages from Blaine. Maybe Ria was right. Maybe he'd already moved on. The thought hurt more than she expected, a sharp ache she didn't know how to name. By evening, Jordan sat in her small apartment, the rain tapping against the window. She'd unpacked her notebook, its pages filled with projections and notes, now just reminders of a day she'd rather forget. The resignation felt final but not freeing. She curled up on the couch, trying to focus on a spreadsheet she'd brought home, but her mind kept drifting to Blaine's eyes, his promise to keep her safe. Had it meant anything at all? A knock at the door jolted her upright. It was late, too late for visitors. She hesitated, her pulse quickening, then peered through the peephole. Blaine stood there, soaked from the rain, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, his gray eyes wild with something she'd never seen in him before. She opened the door, the cold air rushing in. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp with surprise. He stepped inside without asking, water dripping onto her hardwood floor. "You resigned," he said, his voice rough, almost accusing. No warning, no explanation, just gone. "Why?" Jordan crossed her arms, her notebook abandoned on the couch. "You know why," she said, her throat tight. "Rhea, the photo, the threats. I can't keep up with whatever this is. I'm not built for it." Blaine's jaw clenched, his hands flexing at his sides like he was fighting to stay calm. "You think running fixes this? You think I'd let Rhea or anyone hurt you?" He took a step closer, the space between them shrinking, charged with the same electricity she'd felt in his office. "Jordan, don't shut me out. You're the only honest thing I've had in years." The words hit her hard, cracking the walls she'd built all day. His voice was raw, desperate, nothing like the polished CEO she'd met. Rainwater glistened on his skin, his shirt clinging to his shoulders, and his eyes held hers, refusing to let go. She wanted to push him away, to protect herself from whatever this was, but her feet stayed rooted, her heart betraying her with a pull she couldn't ignore. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what you want from me." He closed the distance, his hand lifting to her cheek, hesitant, like he was asking permission. "I want you to stay," he said, his thumb brushing her skin, warm despite the chill. "Not because of work or numbers or anything else. Because of you." Her breath caught, the world narrowing to his touch, his voice. She didn't know who moved first, but suddenly his lips were on hers, soft at first, then urgent, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into the kiss. Her hands found his wet jacket, gripping tight, and for a moment, the fear, the threats, the chaos, it all vanished. There was only him and her and the rain drumming outside. They pulled back, breathless, his forehead resting against hers. "Don't leave," he murmured, his voice a plea. "Not yet." Jordan's heart raced, her mind a tangle of doubt and want. She nodded, unsure what she was agreeing to, only knowing she wasn't ready to let go. Hey, amazing viewers. We're halfway through Jordan and Blaine's story, and things are heating up. What do you think? Should Jordan trust Blaine, or is Rhea's warning too real? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're loving this roller coaster, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss what happens next. Let's see where this kiss takes them. Outside, the rain fell harder, but inside the air was warm, heavy with unspoken promises. Jordan's phone lay on the couch, its screen dark, for now. But somewhere in the city, another message was being typed, another photo waiting to surface, and the storm they'd ignited was far from over. Jordan's apartment felt smaller with Blaine there, the air still charged from their kiss. His wet jacket hung on her coat rack, dripping onto the floor, and he stood by the window, the city's rain-slicked lights framing him. Her lips tingled, her heart a wild rhythm she couldn't tame. She'd nodded when he asked her not to leave, but the weight of that choice pressed against her, mingling with the fear Rhea had planted. Her phone lay silent on the couch, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the next threat was waiting, just out of sight. Blaine turned, his gray eyes softer now, searching hers. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, like he was afraid of breaking the moment. She nodded, then shook her head, honesty winning out. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted, sinking onto the couch, her hands twisting together. It's too much." He sat beside her, close but not crowding, his presence steady. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry I dragged you into my mess." Her gaze flicked to him, sharp. "I dragged myself," she said. "I walked into that boardroom. I don't always see the lines other people do." She hesitated, her throat tightening. If she was going to stay, if this was real, she couldn't hide anymore. There's something you need to know about me. He leaned forward, his full attention on her, no judgment in his eyes. Tell me. She took a breath, her fingers tracing the couch's seam, grounding her. I'm autistic, she said, the words steady but heavy. It's why I'm good with numbers, patterns. It's also why I miss things, social things, why I blurt out facts or freeze when it's too loud. I'm not broken, but I'm different, and not everyone gets that. Blaine didn't flinch, didn't look away. He nodded, slow, like he was piecing her together. Thank you for telling me, he said, his voice soft but firm. For what it's worth, I don't think you're different in a bad way. You see things, numbers, people, truth, that I've spent years missing. Her chest loosened just a fraction. You don't have to say that. I'm not. He shifted closer, his hand resting near hers, not touching but close enough to feel. I've got my own stuff, you know, things I don't talk about. He paused, his jaw tightening, then exhaled. I've been in therapy for years. Control issues, trust issues. The kind of baggage that comes with building an empire and losing everyone who mattered. It's not pretty, but it's me. Jordan blinked, caught off guard. She'd seen him as untouchable, Blaine Mercer, the CEO who commanded rooms. But here he was, peeling back his armor, showing her scars she hadn't expected. Why tell me? She asked, her voice quiet. Because you're honest, he said, his eyes locking onto hers. And I want to be honest with you. No games, no walls. Just us. The word us hung between them, fragile but real. She felt it, the pull that had started the moment their eyes met in that boardroom, growing stronger now, rooted in something deeper than attraction. She nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. Okay, us? He smiled back, rare and unguarded, and it warmed her more than she'd thought possible. There's a gala tomorrow night, he said, his tone shifting, lighter but still earnest. Charity thing, black tie, all the usual nonsense. I'd like you to come with me, not as an intern, as my date. Her stomach flipped, nerves and excitement tangling together. A gala meant people, eyes, noise, everything that overwhelmed her. But with him it felt possible. I don't own anything fancy, she said, half laughing, half panicked. I'll take care of it, he said, his voice warm with certainty. Say yes, Jordan. She met his gaze, her fear still there but quieter now, overshadowed by something new, trust. Yes, she said, and the word felt like a step forward, not a fall. They talked longer, the rain slowing outside, their voices weaving a fragile bridge between their worlds. When he left, promising to send a car for her tomorrow, she felt lighter, like she'd shed a weight she hadn't known she carried. But the next morning, in Blaine's office, the air was heavier. He stood by his desk, reviewing gala details, when Vaughn, his CFO and oldest friend, walked in, his face tight with concern. Blaine, Vaughn said, closing the door. We need to talk. Blaine glanced up, impatient. Make it quick. Vaughn didn't sit, his hands in his pockets, a rare sign of unease. This thing with Jordan Hayes. It's moving fast, too fast. People are talking and not just interns. The board's watching. Ria's circling. You're getting too close and it's clouding your judgment. Blaine's eyes narrowed, his voice cold. My judgment's fine. Jordan's not a liability, she's... He stopped, searching for the word, then settled on, she's different. Exactly, Vaughn said, his tone sharp. Different's dangerous in your world. You built this company on control, Blaine. Don't lose it now. Blaine turned away, his gaze on the city skyline, Vaughn's warning sinking in like a stone. He trusted Jordan more than he'd trusted anyone in years, but doubt crept in. Not about her, but about what his world might do to her. I hear you, he said finally, his voice low. "But I'm not backing off." Vaughn sighed, heading for the door. "I hope you know what you're doing." Alone, Blaine pulled out his phone, a photo of Jordan from the security feed still saved. A quiet moment, her sorting files, unaware of the lens. He deleted it, his thumb lingering on the screen. Vaughn was right about one thing. He was in deep. But as he thought of Jordan's smile, her yes, he knew he didn't want out. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to the gala looming, the eyes waiting, and the warning neither of them saw coming. Jordan's agreement to attend the gala with Blaine lingered in her mind like a melody, both thrilling and terrifying. She stood in her apartment, a sleek black dress delivered that morning, draped over her couch. A gift from Blaine, its fabric shimmering under the dim light. Her fingers brushed the material, soft and foreign, a reminder of the world she was stepping into. His words, no games, no walls, just us, had cracked something open in her, a hope she hadn't dared to feel before. But Vaughn's warning to Blaine, though she didn't know it, cast a shadow she could sense, like a storm gathering just out of sight. Her phone buzzed, a text from Blaine. "Cars coming at 7. Can't wait to see you." She smiled, her nerves easing, and typed back a quick, "Okay." For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe, like maybe she belonged somewhere other than her spreadsheets and solitude. But in Blaine's office, the air was thick with tension. He stood by the window, his phone gripped tightly, scrolling through a breaking news alert that had hit the financial wires minutes ago. Mercer Enterprises intern, suspected of manipulating CEO for personal gain. Jordan's name wasn't mentioned outright, but the details, new intern, boardroom disruption, private lunch, pointed straight to her. The article hinted at coercion, ambition, even fraud, painting Blaine as a victim of a calculated scheme. Anonymous sources. No proof. But the damage was instant. Vaughn burst in, his face grim, a tablet in hand. "This is bad, Blaine," he said, tossing the device onto the desk. The screen glowed with the same headline, comments already piling up, investors demanding answers, analysts questioning Blaine's leadership. The board's freaking out. 2 major investors just called, threatening to pull funding unless you address this. Now. Blaine's jaw clenched, his eyes scanning the article again, fury simmering beneath his calm. "This is Rhea," he said, his voice low, lethal. "Her fingerprints are all over it. She's trying to burn Jordan to get to me." Vaughn crossed his arms, pacing. "Maybe. But it doesn't matter who started it. The fire's spreading. The photo, the rumors, now this. It's a pattern, and Jordan's at the center. Whether it's true or not, people believe it." "It's not true," Blaine snapped, slamming his phone down. "Jordan's not manipulating anyone. She's—" He stopped, the word honest almost slipping out, but it felt too raw, too vulnerable. "She's not the problem." Vaughn stopped pacing, his gaze steady, almost pitying. "I get it, Blaine. You care about her, but caring's a liability right now. The company's bleeding, and you're the only one who can stop it. Distance yourself from her, at least publicly. Let the story die." Blaine's hands curled into fists, Vaughn's words hitting like a blade. Distance himself. The idea twisted in his gut, warring with the memory of Jordan's voice. "I'm autistic. I'm not broken." And the trust she'd given him, fragile and real. He'd promised to protect her, not abandon her. But the company, his empire, was shaking, and every choice felt like a trap. "I'm not throwing her to the wolves," he said finally, his voice steel. "We'll ride this out. I'll talk to the investors myself." Vaughn shook his head, frustration etching his face. "You're betting everything on her, Blaine. I hope she's worth it." "She is," Blaine said, but as Vaughn left, doubt crept in, not about Jordan, but about how far Rhea would go. He pulled up his security feed, half expecting to see Jordan at her desk, but she wasn't there. She was at home, getting ready for a gala that now felt like walking into a lion's den. At her apartment, Jordan slipped into the dress, its fit perfect, like it was made for her. She didn't see the news, didn't know her name was being whispered in boardrooms and chat threads. Her phone buzzed again. Not Blaine this time, but an unknown number. She opened it, her breath catching. Leave him, or the next story buries you both. No photo, just words, sharp and final. Her hands trembled, the dress suddenly heavy. She didn't know Ria's game, didn't know the article was live, but the threat felt like a noose tightening. She glanced at the clock, 6:45 p.m. The car would be here soon. She could go, step into Blaine's world, or stay, hide, let the fear win. She grabbed her notebook, her fingers tracing its worn edges, grounding her. Numbers didn't lie. Blaine's eyes didn't either, not when he'd kissed her, not when he'd asked her to stay. She set her jaw, slipping on her shoes. She'd go. Not because she was brave, but because she wasn't done fighting for whatever this was. Outside, the city glittered, unaware of the storm breaking over Mercer Enterprises. In his office, Blaine dialed his head of PR, his voice cold. Kill the story, find the source, and get me a list of every investor who's wavering. I'll handle them. He hung up, his eyes on the skyline, a single thought anchoring him. Jordan's not paying for this. But somewhere Ria smiled at her phone, a new email drafted, ready to send. The gala was hours away and the game was far from over. Jordan stood in her apartment, the black gala dress clinging to her like a second skin, her heart pounding as she read the anonymous text again. Leave him, or the next story buries you both. The words felt like a blade, but she shoved her phone into her clutch, refusing to let fear win. Blaine's promise, I'll take care of it, echoed in her mind, stronger than the threat. She glanced at the clock, 6:55 p.m. The car would be here any minute. She smoothed her dress, her notebook left behind for once, and stepped toward the door, ready to face the gala and whatever waited beyond. But across town, Blaine's office was a war zone of silence. The news article, Mercer Enterprises intern, suspected of manipulating CEO, had spread like wildfire, investor calls flooding his line, each one a demand for answers. He told Vaughn he'd stand by Jordan, but the pressure was relentless, cracks forming in his resolve. His phone buzzed with another text from Ria. End it, or I release everything. Attached was a screenshot, Jordan's medical file, her autism diagnosis highlighted. His stomach churned. Ria wasn't bluffing. He paced, the skyline beyond his window blurring. Protecting Jordan meant shielding her from this, from him, if it came to it. The gala was hours away, but the thought of her walking into that spotlight, unaware of the knives aimed at her, twisted something deep inside him. Vaughn's words haunted him. Distance yourself. He hated it, but the company was teetering, and one wrong move could ruin them both. The car pulled up outside Jordan's building, and she slid into the back seat, the driver silent as they sped toward the gala venue. Her phone stayed quiet, no new threats, but no word from Blaine either. She fidgeted, nerves creeping in, but pushed them down. He'd be there. He'd promised. At the venue, a sleek hotel with chandeliers and velvet ropes, Blaine waited in a private lounge, his tuxedo sharp, but his expression strained. When Jordan walked in, her dress catching the light, his breath caught. She was stunning. But it was her eyes, wide and trusting, that undid him. He crossed the room, his hand brushing her arm, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "You look incredible," he said, his voice softer than the crowd's hum beyond the door. She smiled, shy but warm. "Thanks. I'm nervous." He nodded, guiding her to a quiet corner, away from the staff bustling nearby. "Jordan," he started, his tone heavier now. "We need to talk." Her stomach dropped, the shift in his voice like a warning bell. "What's wrong?" He looked away, his jaw tight, then back at her, his eyes guarded. Things are complicated right now. The company's under fire, and being seen together tonight, it's not safe. For either of us. He swallowed, the lie tasting bitter. I think we need space. Just for a while. Jordan froze, his words hitting like a slap. Space. The room spun, the chandeliers too bright, the air too thin. Space, she echoed, her voice small. But you said us. I know, he said, his voice cracking, but he didn't take it back. I'm sorry, it's not you, it's the situation. I need to fix this. Her hands clenched, nails biting her palms. She'd trusted him, opened herself up, and now he was pushing her away, just like Rhea warned. He'll leave you. The hurt was sharp, raw, but she wouldn't let him see her break. Okay, she said, her voice steady despite the ache. If that's what you want. She turned, walking out of the lounge, her heels clicking on the marble, each step heavier than the last. Blaine watched her go, his chest tight, hating himself but knowing it was the only way to keep Rhea's claws off her. He'd fix this, find the leak, neutralize the story, but for now he'd let her hate him if it meant she was safe. Jordan didn't go to the gala. She took a cab home, the dress feeling like a costume now, her eyes burning but dry. Her apartment was too quiet, the silence mocking her. She kicked off her shoes, sank onto the couch, and let the devastation roll through her, wave after wave. He'd lied, maybe not with words, but with the distance in his eyes. She'd been a fool to believe in us. The next morning at Mercer Enterprises, Jordan avoided her desk, slipping into the break room to dodge Trinity's inevitable smirk. But Trinity found her anyway, leaning against the counter with a coffee, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Heard you bailed on the gala, she said. Smart move, Jordan. This place isn't for you. Jordan poured her own coffee, ignoring the jab, but Trinity pressed closer. Look, I know it stings, but you're young. Apply somewhere else. Smaller firms, less drama. I can even send you some listings. Her smile was all teeth. No shame in starting over. Jordan's grip tightened on her mug, Trinity's kindness a thin veil over cruelty. She wanted to snap back, to say she wasn't running, but Blaine's words, space, choked her fight. I'll think about it, she said, brushing past her, the idea of leaving twisting like a knife. Back at her desk, she opened her laptop, job board staring back at her. She didn't want to go, but staying felt like chasing a ghost. Her phone stayed silent, no texts, no apologies. Blaine was gone, and she was alone again. In his office, Blaine stared at his phone, Jordan's number pulled up, but unsent. Rhea's latest email sat open. Good choice. Keep her away or the next leak's worse. He slammed his laptop shut, fury and guilt warring inside him. He'd lied to protect her, but at what cost? Jordan sat at her desk, the job board on her laptop glowing like a taunt. Trinity's words, apply somewhere else, looped in her mind, but they couldn't drown out Blaine's voice. We need space. The hurt had settled into a dull ache, heavy but no longer sharp. She hadn't seen him since the gala night 2 days ago, and the silence was louder than any threat. Her fingers hovered over a job application, but she couldn't click submit. Leaving felt like giving up, not just on Mercer Enterprises, but on herself. She closed the laptop, her notebook's worn edges calling her back to numbers, to safety. The office hummed around her, oblivious to her turmoil. Trinity's laughter rang from the break room, and Jordan caught a whisper of her name, another rumor taking root. She ignored it, focusing on a spreadsheet, but her phone buzzed, a reminder of a meeting she'd forgotten, one Blaine was supposed to lead. Her stomach twisted. Would he be there? Did she even want him to be? Across town, Blaine sat in a leather chair, the quiet of Dr. Locke's office pressing against him. The therapist, A calm woman with gray streaks in her hair watched him over her glasses, her pen poised but still. He hadn't been here in weeks, dodging sessions to chase control over the company, the leaks, Jordan. Now, with Ria's threats tightening like a noose, and Jordan's absence a weight he couldn't shake, he felt like he was unraveling. "You're carrying something heavy, Blaine," Dr. Locke said, her voice steady. "What's changed?" He stared at the floor, his hands clasped tight. "I lied to someone," he said, the words rough. "Someone who trusted me. I told her we needed space to protect her, but it's killing me. And the company's falling apart, investors pulling out, stories spreading. I thought I could fix it, but—" He trailed off, his throat tight. Dr. Locke leaned forward. "Why did you lie?" "To keep her safe," he said. But the answer felt hollow. He rubbed his face, exhaustion seeping through. "Ria's got dirt, private stuff. If I don't back off, she'll use it. But pushing Jordan away, it's like losing something I didn't know I needed." "Jordan," Dr. Locke repeated, noting the name. "You've mentioned her before. What makes her different?" Blaine's jaw worked, memories flooding in. Jordan's blunt honesty, her quiet strength, the way she saw through his walls without trying. "She's real," he said finally. "No agenda, no games. I haven't had that since—" He stopped, his breath hitching. Since childhood, before his father's temper and his mother's silence taught him trust was a trap. Dr. Locke's eyes softened. "Since you were a kid," she finished gently. "Blaine, you've built a fortress around yourself because of what happened back then. Your father's anger, your mother's absence. But keeping people out doesn't heal you. It just leaves you alone." He flinched, the truth cutting deeper than he expected. He'd spent years running from that pain, burying it under deals and power. But Jordan had slipped through, and now losing her felt like losing himself. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted, his voice raw. "I don't even know if I can." "You start by being honest, Doctor," Locke said. "With her, with yourself. But first you have to face what's driving you, fear, not control." He nodded, the weight of it settling in. As he left, the city's noise hit him like a wave, but his mind was clearer, sharper. He needed to find Jordan, to undo the lie, but something else gnawed at him, a pattern he'd missed. Vaughn's warnings, his insistence on distance, his too quick updates on the leaks. Blaine's steps slowed, suspicion curling in his gut. Back at Mercer Enterprises, he pulled up security logs, cross-referencing Vaughn's access. The photo leaks, the article, too precise, too timed. His phone buzzed, a call from Vaughn, but he let it ring, his eyes narrowing as he opened an email from his security team. A single line confirmed it. Vaughn accessed HR files, including Jay Hayes's medical history. Blaine's blood ran cold. Vaughn, his friend, his CFO, had been feeding Ria, orchestrating the chaos. But why? Then it hit him. Vaughn's lingering glances at Jordan, his protective tone when he mentioned her, the way he'd pushed Blaine to let her go. Not for the company. For himself. Blaine stood, fury and betrayal twisting inside him. Vaughn was in love with Jordan, and he'd torn them apart to get her. The realization was a punch, but it clarified everything. He grabbed his coat, heading for the analytics floor. He'd find Jordan, tell her the truth. About the lie, about Vaughn, about how he felt. No more space. Hey, incredible viewers, we're deep in Blaine and Jordan's story, and the stakes are higher than ever. Do you believe people deserve second chances, even after a lie? Should Blaine fight for Jordan, or is Vaughn's betrayal too close to home? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're hooked, hit that subscribe button and bell. We're not done yet. In the analytics department, Jordan saved her spreadsheet, unaware of Blaine's discovery, her heart still bruised but unbroken. Vaughn's office light was on, his silhouette moving behind the glass. She didn't see him watching her, didn't know the storm was about to break. Jordan closed her laptop, the analytics department's hum fading as she packed her bag. Blaine's absence since the gala stung, but Vaughn's betrayal, revealed in hushed office whispers, cut deeper. She hadn't seen Blaine confront him, but the news of Vaughn's suspension rippled through the company, leaving questions no one dared ask her. She kept her head down, focusing on numbers, letting patterns shield her from the chaos. Her phone buzzed, a reminder of a scholarship interview tomorrow, one she'd applied for months ago, before Blaine, before everything. It felt like a lifeline, a chance to rebuild on her own terms. She left the office, the city's evening chill wrapping around her. Her notebook, tucked in her bag, held new projections, sharper than ever, as if her hurt had honed her focus. Blaine's lie, "We need space," still ached, but she was done waiting for apologies. If he wanted distance, she'd give it to him, and she'd grow stronger for it. The next week, Jordan stood in a university conference room, her hands steady as she accepted a scholarship for her analytical work. The panel had been impressed, her ability to spot patterns in financial data rivaling seasoned professionals. The award wasn't just a check, it was validation, proof she belonged, autism and all. She'd earned it through late nights, meticulous spreadsheets, and a mind that saw clarity where others saw noise. The room applauded, and for once the sound didn't overwhelm her. It lifted her. That evening, she arrived at an autism inclusion conference, her scholarship win still warm in her chest. The venue was a modest auditorium filled with advocates, families, and professionals. She'd been invited to speak, a last-minute request after her work gained traction online. Her topic, leveraging neurodiversity in data analysis. She'd prepared slides, rehearsed in her mirror, but standing at the podium, her heart raced. The lights were bright, the crowd quiet, waiting. "I'm Jordan Hayes," she began, her voice clear, stronger than she felt. "I'm autistic, and that's not a flaw. It's my edge." She spoke of patterns, of how her mind untangled numbers others missed, of workplaces that could thrive by embracing difference. Her words flowed, raw but precise, each one a step toward owning her space. The audience leaned in, some nodding, others scribbling notes. She didn't see the man in the back row, his tuxedo swapped for a plain jacket, his gray eyes fixed on her. Blaine stood by the exit, half hidden in shadow, his chest tight. He'd come after seeing the conference program, her name in bold. He hadn't planned to, hadn't trusted himself to face her after the lie, after Vaughn's sabotage unraveled. But her scholarship news hit him hard, pride mixing with regret. She'd soared without him, and he wasn't sure he had the right to step back into her orbit. On stage, Jordan clicked to her final slide, a graph of her latest projection. "This is what inclusion looks like," she said, her gaze sweeping the room, missing him. "It's not about fixing us, it's about seeing what we bring." The applause was thunderous, and she smiled, small but real, her fear burned away by purpose. Blaine didn't move. Her words echoed his therapy sessions. Face what's driving you, and he knew fear had driven his lie, not just Ria's threats. He'd pushed Jordan away to protect her, but also to protect himself, from vulnerability, from loss. Now, watching her shine, he saw what he'd lost, not just her trust, but a chance at something honest. She stepped off the stage, shaking hands, answering questions, her presence magnetic. Blaine's hands flexed, the urge to approach her warring with the weight of his guilt. He'd hurt her, and no apology could erase that. She was building something, her future, her voice, and he wouldn't risk derailing it. Not again. He slipped out before she could spot him, the night air sharp against his skin. Her words stayed with him. It's about seeing what we bring, and he wondered if she'd ever see what he still carried for her. The conference hall glowed behind him, but he walked into the dark, her strength a light he didn't deserve to follow. Back at the venue, Jordan packed her notes, her heart full but heavy. She didn't know Blaine had been there, didn't feel his eyes on her. But as she left, her phone buzzed, a new email, no sender name. You're stronger than they know. Keep shining. She frowned, the words familiar, stirring an ache she thought she'd buried. Shaking her head, she tucked her phone away, stepping into the city, her path clearer than ever. Jordan stepped out of the conference venue, the anonymous email, You're stronger than they know. Keep shining, still tugging at her thoughts. The city's pulse surrounded her, horns and chatter blending into a rhythm she could handle tonight. Her speech had been a milestone, the scholarship a foundation. But the message felt personal, like a voice from a life she'd tried to leave behind. She pushed it down, focusing on the weight of her notebook in her bag, its pages now holding notes for her next project. Blaine hadn't been part of her triumph, and she told herself that was okay. She was enough on her own. The next morning, she boarded a train to her aunt's house in the suburbs, needing the quiet of family to ground her after the week's highs. Her aunt's place was a small brick home, warm with the smell of baked bread and old records spinning softly. Jordan smiled, helping in the kitchen, but her mind wandered, replaying the conference, the email, the ache she couldn't name. A package arrived mid-afternoon, no return address. Inside was a single note, handwritten in sharp, familiar script. Can I be enough now? Her breath caught, her fingers tracing the words. No signature, but she knew. Blaine. The question was raw, vulnerable, nothing like the man who'd pushed her away. She clutched the note, torn between anger and a pull she couldn't deny. As dusk settled, a knock came at the door. Her aunt glanced at her, curious, but Jordan's heart already knew. She opened it, and there he was, Blaine in a simple coat, his dark hair slightly mussed, his gray eyes glistening with something that looked like tears. The sight of him, unguarded and here, cracked the armor she'd built. Jordan, he said, his voice rough, like he'd fought to get the words out. Can I come in? She stepped aside, her arms crossed, the note still in her hand. Her aunt busied herself in the kitchen, giving them space. They stood in the living room, the record player humming faintly, and silence stretched until she broke it. Why are you here? She asked, her voice steady but edged. Blaine exhaled, his hands flexing like he was holding himself together. To say I'm sorry, he said, not just for the lie, for saying we needed space, for letting fear make me think I could lose you and be okay. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. I saw you at the conference. You were incredible, stronger than I've ever been, and I stayed back because I didn't think I deserved to stand in your light. Her throat tightened, the memory of that night, her voice, her strength, mixing with his words. You hurt me, she said, honest but not cruel. I trusted you, and you made me feel like I wasn't enough. I know, he said, his voice breaking. A tear slipped down his cheek, and he didn't wipe it away. I lied to keep Rhea from hurting you, to save the company, but it was wrong. I was scared, not of you, but of how much you mean to me. I've spent my life building walls, Jordan, but you make them crumble, not because you're different, but because you make me better. The words hit her hard, raw and real, no trace of the CEO's polish. She saw it in his eyes, regret, hope, a man stripped bare. Her fingers loosened on the note, her anger softening, not gone but quieter. You can't just show up and say that, she said, her voice wavering. I'm building something now. I don't know if I can go back. I'm not asking you to go back, he said, his voice low, earnest. I'm asking for a chance to move forward, with you, if you'll have me. She looked at him, really looked, The man who'd knelt to pick up her files, who'd kissed her in the rain, who'd lied, and now stood here, broken open. Her heart tugged not just toward him, but toward the possibility of us again. She didn't know if she could trust it, but she wanted to try. "I don't know what enough looks like," she said finally, her voice soft, "but I'm willing to find out." Blaine's face lit up, a smile breaking through, small but real. He reached for her hand, hesitant, and she let him take it, his warmth steadying her. The record player spun on, the room warm with possibility, but outside the world waited, Ria's threats unanswered, Vaughn's betrayal unresolved, and a company still teetering. Jordan squeezed his hand, her strength her own, but shared now. Whatever came next, she'd face it, not as an intern, not as a victim, but as herself. Jordan held Blaine's hand in her aunt's living room, the handwritten note, "Can I be enough now?" still clutched in her other hand. His words, raw and tear-streaked, echoed in her chest. "You make me better." The warmth of his touch grounded her, but trust wasn't a switch she could flip. She'd grown too much, stood too tall at that conference to fall back blindly. Her eyes met his, steady, searching for the truth behind his apology. The record player's soft hum filled the silence, and she felt her aunt's quiet presence in the kitchen, a reminder of family, of roots she'd never lose. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice clear, deliberate. "But this can't be like before. If we do this, it's on my terms, honesty, always. No more lies, no more space." Her grip tightened on his hand, not letting go, but setting boundaries. "I'm not just an intern or a puzzle to solve. I'm me, and you have to see all of it." Blaine nodded, his eyes glistening but unwavering. "I see you," he said, his voice low, fervent. "And I'll prove it every day if you let me." She exhaled, a weight lifting, not gone but lighter. "Okay," she said, a small smile breaking through, her first step toward him. "Let's try." The moment held them, fragile but real, a promise to rebuild. They sat together, talking late into the night, her aunt joining with tea and stories, weaving Blaine into her world. Ria's threats, Vaughn's betrayal, the company's chaos. They waited outside, but here they were just Jordan and Blaine, starting anew. 2 years later, sunlight streamed through the windows of a sleek office, the walls lined with photos of smiling teens and bold mission statements. The Hayes Mercer Foundation for Neurodivergent Youth hummed with activity, mentors teaching coding, art classes buzzing, a quiet room for sensory breaks. Jordan stood at the front, her caramel skin glowing under the soft light, her notebook replaced by a tablet filled with program data. She wore a simple ring on her left hand, its shine catching the eye as she spoke to a group of donors. Blaine stood beside her, his suit traded for a sweater, his gray eyes warm as he watched her lead. They'd married quietly, a small ceremony with her aunt's laughter and his sister's tears, no press, no gala. The company had stabilized, Ria's threats exposed as bluffs, Vaughn's actions leading to his quiet exit. But this foundation was their heart. It grew from Jordan's vision, her conference speech sparking ideas, and Blaine's resources, his therapy-driven clarity fueling change. They built it for kids like her, who saw patterns others missed, who deserved spaces to thrive. The event was a fundraiser, the room packed with supporters. Jordan finished her speech, her voice steady, powerful, sharing stories of students who'd found confidence, skills, futures. The crowd applauded, and she turned to Blaine, her eyes meeting his. For the first time in public, she smiled at him. Not shy, not guarded, but open, radiant, a smile that said, "We did this." His breath caught, his own smile mirroring hers, love and pride woven into every line of his face. They stepped off the stage, hands brushing, no need for words. The foundation was their proof. Love wasn't just a moment, but a choice, rebuilt daily. Outside, the city moved on, but here they were enough together. Hey, amazing viewers, that's the end of Jordan and Blaine's story, and what a journey it's been. Was this the kind of ending you hoped for? What would you have done differently if you were Jordan or Blaine? I'm dying to read your thoughts in the comments below. If you love this story, hit that subscribe button, smash the bell, and share it with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going.